Okay, I also want to talk about something that I think is really interesting, and I've noticed it like my entire sentient life. There is a type of person who hates poor people, but doesn't know that they hate poor people. So what they're going to do is say like, oh, like, you know, I don't like that male centered, you know, Trump apologist thing. Because here's the thing. Guess where their most gendered communities in America are? The poor. There is this I took this amazing class on the cultural implications of wealth. And one of the things it said is like in upper class families, the person who has the money has the power, at least in our modern age. Look, that's true of my family. Like my mom makes more money than any of my other parents. Like, and so she's in charge. And that's like, but if you go into small communities in America, yes, they are still adhering to very traditional gender dynamics. And yes, that means the media they consume might be more gendered and maybe a little bit more misogynist. And like, I don't love that. I don't think that's great. But the way you change that is college for all. You change that with more opportunities. You change that with more economic stability. But it's really fun and really comfortable for a specific type of elite to talk about like gender dynamics among wealthy people and be like, oh, this really accomplished woman is, you know, better than this other guy. And that is a conversation I think we should definitely have, but not when you're doing it because you're classist.
You're taking two conversations and you're mashing them up in a way. I'm not saying it's bad, but you're doing it. One of them is this cultural conversation about gender dynamics. Even the phrase gender dynamics will get you laughed at you know, Denny's restaurant throughout the country.
That's what I'm trying to say, Charles.
Yeah. I'm with you. But then the other side of it has to do with this objective question, like, where are we moving? Where's the working class? And I want to bring back Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan, who said some horrifically anti-trans things. Let's be clear. Joe Rogan thinks you should use whatever bathroom you want, isn't against healthcare for transgender people to help with their transition or hormone replacement therapy, whatever, is not saying that they shouldn't be allowed to join the military, is not saying they shouldn't get civil rights protections. The one issue that he's been terrible on is because he's an athlete from MMA, he got really upset because in 2006, someone transitioned from being a man to a woman and then competed or wanted to compete against women who were assigned female at birth. And he thought that this was some sort of big problem. I mean, it's an issue. It's not, I mean, it's not a non-issue. And the way he addressed it was insulting and not with the times. Like, oh my God, this guy is sort of okay with 9/10 of the agenda and is terrible on the 10th. Maybe if we just wait a little bit, he'll come on board. There's a sense of the left turning to millions of people who are making enormous strides in their tolerance and acceptance of this country's diversity. And we find the one thing that they're still bad at, and we use that to define who they are. This is the opposite of love the sin or hate the sin. This is whatever mote in your eye still exists. That's who you are. Fuck you. Out comes the finger.
But see, I don't think I was mashing things together, because what I'm trying to say is this is directly related to the kind of communities and cultural conversations you were exposed to. Like, I don't buy into the like liberal elites on college campuses, because look, we know for a fact that higher income voters voted for Trump at an alarming rate. So I don't think it's that simple, but I do think like at the end of the day, so again, I'm from Southern Virginia. I will have people call me up and legitimately ask me to explain things like trans rights to them because they don't know. Like, they're not.
One of my best friends from college called me, like, I think it might have been as long ago as like 6 years ago. I remember this so clearly because I was shopping for shoes at Union Square. He calls me up and he's like, Charles, look, I have this problem. I'm like, what is it? He's like, I think I'm against trans people. And I can see that people I know are like, you know, thinking that I'm awful. And I'm, you know, and he was genuinely in this moment of like, what do? I want to be on the right side of stuff, but I feel like it's really wrong to just make everyone suddenly change the signs on the bathrooms or whatever. And I remember saying to him, I said, listen, Chris, like, you're a good person. And I know that if you were dealing with anyone on an individual level, that you would be kind and thoughtful to them to the best of your ability. And he's like, yeah, but that doesn't seem to matter. I was like, well, actually, it matters most of all. And I believe that if you just give yourself permission to be who you are and to have the opinions that you do, even if they're not the most, radical left in the world, I think that eventually you'll settle on stuff that makes sense for you. So a few years after that, he comes back to me and he's like, I get it now. It all makes sense. And he had changed his opinions on this topic in a really radical way, not because people were haranguing him, but because people were giving him the space to evolve. And I think that muscle that on the left barely exists because of that finger.